Okay, so today we are going to carry on from what we learned last week. First, we have this piece of paper. It is watercolor paper. It's fancy watercolor paper. You probably haven't used this kind before. If you look at it, you can see and like bend it a little bit against the light. You could see little grooves. That's where the watercolor can go into and sit and absorb into the paper. We are going to make a horizon line about halfway down the paper. It does not have to be exact. So I'm about halfway down the paper. I'm lining up my ruler so it's right against the edge of the paper. So I'm going to go ahead. It looks like this is the same amount of space as this over here. So it is perpendicular to the side or parallel to the bottom. And I'm doing a line going across. Now this should be a very, 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 very light line. This line is not going to be seen at all in the final piece. You're going to be erasing it. So it should be very, 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 very light. I'm doing it harder than I should because I want you to see it on the paper, on the video. So this is our horizon line. Wherever you think the middle is, you're going to put a dot. Who remembers what that dot is called? Anybody? This is the 1 point in 1 point perspective. This is the line where everything leads back to when we learned about 1 point perspective last week. So now I'm going to take my ruler. I'm going to make sure it is on that dot and make sure it is on the corner, the bottom corner of my paper. So on that dot, on the bottom corner of my paper, I'm going to make a line. This can be dark because it's not going to move. This is going to be your street. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to put my pencil, ooh, my pencil's wonky. I'm going to put my pencil right on that dot. I'm going to line it up with the corner of my paper. Line that up perfectly. And then I'm going to do a line, which can be dark. Okay, so this is going to be the street that goes back into the distance. In the middle of the street, we're going to be doing lines, like the lines in a street. So first I want to measure the bottom. So this is 12, if I measure over here, plus about 2 inches. So about 14 inches. So I want a little less than 14 inches. So I want to do a little less than 7 as my midpoint. So that's my midpoint of the street. Now, I'm going to line up any inch. So I'm going to line up 7. So it lines up exactly with that mark. And then I'm going to put about a 1/4 inch away from that mark. I'm going to put a mark, and a 1/4 inch away from that mark, I'm going to put a mark. So I'm like 6 3/4 and I'm 7 1/4, if that makes sense. Then I'm going to erase that middle mark. Middle mark gone. So now I'm also going to go, let's see, let's put it right on the 7 right here. If you can see that. Here, can I get it closer? Let me do a close-up since I have the technology. Okay, so let it stop wagging. Okay, so now, oh, this is a terrible eraser. Whew. Get a different pencil. All right, so now I have this lined up directly with the 7. It can be lined up with any of your inch marks. And, excuse me, I'm going to go about 1 inch to this side. And I'm going to put a line right there. So it's 1 inch away. This is the middle mark that I erased. This is a 1/4 inch away from that. This is 1 inch from that. So I'm going to line that up over here. So it's lined up with that 6 right there. I'm going to go to the 7 and I'm going to make a mark right there. So now these are going to be your 2 stripes that go down your street. I'm going to do one of them as a solid stripe and one of them as a dotted stripe. The solid stripe is much, much easier to do. So I'm going to line this up right here. I'm going to put my pencil right on that furthest mark to the left, and I'm going to line that up with my vanishing point, So I'm going to go ahead and make that line going all the way there. I'm holding my ruler really tight so it does not move. It's very important that you hold your ruler really tight. So now I'm going to come over to this mark, this next mark, and my ruler's has some grooves in it. Okay, so I'm going to hold it right there, go to the vanishing point, and I'm going to make that line right there to the vanishing point. So now I have that one line that's a solid line that goes down the street. Now I'm going to go to this next mark, go to my vanishing point, and I'm going to do it very, 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 very lightly, like that. I don't know if you can even see that. Here, let me back it up a little. So hopefully you can see that. I'm going to go to this mark and go to the vanishing point very, 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 very lightly. Now, if you want to make your life easier, you can make both of these solid. And you can just have two solid lines going down your street, so as if a car was over here and it can't cross because they're solid lines. But I'm going to make one of them a dotted line. So what I'm going to do is down here, and I'm going to do it with a ruler. I'm going to make sure my ruler is parallel to the bottom of my paper. And I'm going to just make a line right here. Now I'm doing this lightly because I don't know if it's going to look good. I don't know if my lines are going to be the correct size or not. So I'm just doing it lightly at first. So now I'm going to go a little bit away from that. I'm about maybe halfway up the pyramid kind of thing. And I'm going to do a line that's light right here. So now I'm going to erase this mark. And I'm going to erase this mark. So it's as if this is the solid line, this is the beginning of a dotted line. So now I'm going to figure out how much further I want to go down, maybe that much, and I'm going to do a very light line, and I'm going to erase this part. Do you see how now that is becoming the dotted line that's next to the solid line? So now when I go down, it's not going to be this tall anymore because we're going back in space. So things get smaller as you go back in space. So now I think that dotted line is going to be smaller, maybe that small. And this is just a guesstimate. This is not any scientific rule or anything. There is a mathematical rule that you can follow, but that's beyond your fourth grade levels. So we're not going to go into that. So now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to do it shorter than, this is shorter than this was. So I'm going to go ahead and go right here. Now I can erase this part. See how the stripes are getting closer and closer together the further away that you get. Ooh, I erased a little bit of this. I have to redraw. Okay. So now as I go back, this has to be shorter than this was. So I think that's about right. Okay. And then this is going to be shorter than that was, and so forth and so on. There's going to be a point where you can't really do it anymore. It's just going to be right on top of each other. But this is shorter. So I'm just going to keep on guesstimating what it's going to look like down here. Maybe there. Going to erase that. I don't think that was further enough down. I don't know how to say that. Far enough down? I don't think that was far enough down. Okay. So this is one of the rectangles. This is the beginning of the next rectangle that's going to be even shorter. This is going to be even shorter. Now I'm measuring this about the same as I measured that, but my pencil is going to come out a bit to make it even shorter. And pencil comes out because my pencil's not very sharpened. It's going to be shorter and shorter and shorter until you can't really tell. Okay, so now my eraser is too big to even do these little tiny parts. I would need a sharp end of an eraser. So this is one. Can't even tell anymore. This is going to be one. Now I'm just freehanding it. This is one. And eventually they just run into each other. You don't see them anymore and they just become dots that are right next to each other. Okay, so that is how to make a dotted traffic line. So now that I have that all in place, now I can go back and if I like it, if I like how they're spaced, if I see that it's good, I want to go ahead and make the line darker. That's pretty dark. I'm going to come over here, make the line darker. Come over here, make the line darker. Make the line darker. Oops, I went a little past. You could tell because I'm lining it up with all of these lines. And then I don't really have to do anymore. Okay, so then I have my street. If you want to today, if you want to add like a sidewalk of some sort, maybe, here, let me get back out. So if you want to add a sidewalk, then you can come over here and mark where you want the sidewalk to be, line it up with the vanishing point, and go ba-boom. There's your sidewalk. Over here, I could do the same thing, line it up with the vanishing point. I want it about the same as the other side, so maybe up to here. So maybe I'm going to put a little dot, line this up, line it up with the dot, and ba-boom. So now I have a sidewalk. If you want any of those lines on the sidewalk, they go straight across parallel to the bottom of your paper, which I know doesn't seem right, but it is. Let's say they're squares. Let me see. Okay, that's good. And wherever I think there's gonna, oh, I should do both sides at the same time. That would save time. So I'm gonna line this up with where this is, do that line this up with where that is, make sure it's parallel to the bottom of the paper. And I have to move this over a little to do that. Okay, so now I want to make these go down and I want them to be like square. So I think that's about square. Like if they were in front of me. So they get slightly smaller as you go back into space because things that are further in space are smaller. If you don't want to draw the sidewalk at all, you don't have to. If you don't want to draw the different separations of the sidewalk, you do not have to. It's all what you are comfortable with today. We don't have a lot of time since it's only half an hour. And notice as I'm getting towards the horizon, I am pretty parallel to the horizon. I'm trying to be as parallel as possible to the bottom of the paper. And when I went to the horizon is parallel to the bottom of the paper, and it was working out for me. I'm going to turn my ruler around because there are some cracks in my ruler. And this isn't exact. I mean, some of my sidewalk is like, I think this one is bigger than that one, but I'm just trying my best. Nothing's going to be perfect. When we're not measuring out the mathematical properties of like how you have to figure out how much to do, then we don't have to worry about it being off a little bit. Not a big deal. As long as people can see that in general it's getting smaller as it goes back in space, they will visually understand your art. And then by the time you get way back here, they just all run together. So you can just go across like this. Doesn't have to be exact. Okay, so that is all we're doing for today. We are going to have trees on the side, but we are not going to start that today. What I do want you to think about, though, is what kind of a tree you like. If you have time, you can research that if you want. What kind of a tree do you like? Do you like a pine tree? Do you like a cypress tree? Do you like an oak tree? Like, what does that look like and how do you want to draw it? If you want to bring in next time a picture of the kind of tree that you want to draw, that is helpful. If you want to do a palm tree, it's pretty easy to do a palm tree. So that would be, you probably don't need a reference photo, but it's all up to you, whatever kind of tree you want on your street. It's going to be on the side to the side of the sidewalk or to the side of the actual street if you don't have a sidewalk. That is it for today. I hope you have fun. Oh, remember to put your name. So our names go either at the top. I'm going to put T period and my last name. This is how real artists sign their work. So you're going to put at any corner, the top here, the bottom here, the bottom here. But you're going to put your first initial of your first name, period, and then your last name. So, okay, have fun, guys, and happy Thanksgiving.